From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello and welcome back to the show. My name is Noel.
Our colleague Matt is on adventures and will be returning soon. They call me Ben. We're joined as always with our super producer, Dylan, the Tennessee pal, Fagan. Most importantly, you are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. Noel, you and Dylan and I were talking a little bit off air before we started rolling about a seminal spy show called The Americans. And I think you said you've been meaning to watch it.
It's on my list. There's been such a glut of really great spy shows and movies as of late, and it brought that one back up for me. But I just saw Black Bag in the theaters, which is very Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy kind of vibe, and The Americans, I believe it's an FX series from, it's been probably 10 years. It always was spoken of very, very highly.
Yeah. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed The Americans, and I've got to check out Black Bag. That's on my list as well. But you're absolutely correct. There has been this uptick in espionage stories, spy thrillers, because they're great, they're candy for the mind. Even now, as we realize a lot of spy stuff that you read in fiction or you see in film, it's entertaining, but it's not real most of the time.
Well, and I think we posited maybe even on our recent episode on why so many spies are getting caught, that there may well be a crossover between the zeitgeist of the spy thriller and all of this kind of, spies in the news of late.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely onto something there, because maybe the real world events are informing what we see in fiction. And as a result, we got together, you and Matt and I were talking about providing at least one example of a genuine blockbuster spy conspiracy, the type of thing that should ordinarily only exist in the world of fiction. But we're going to dive into the true events that inspired the hit TV show, The Americans. This is the tale of Operation Ghost Stories. What a cool name, right?
So spooky. Let's take a quick word from our sponsor and we'll jump right in.
Here are the facts. Would you ever be a sleeper agent?
I would be a sleepy agent.
Me too, man. Me too, especially after
great.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It seems like a lot of trouble, a lot of effort, for potentially just getting killed and then disavowed.
Exactly. Yeah. It's high risk, and we don't know whether there are high rewards. To understand the depth of this bizarre story, we have to talk about what it means to actually be a sleeper agent. James Bond is not this kind of person.
James Bond was in it for the babes, man. Almost entirely. He wasn't even a very good spy, in the movies anyway, right?
Yeah, he was terrible. He was going around. First off, he was drinking constantly. If you've ever seen the studies of how often he drinks in film, and then he was telling everybody his real name all the time. And
maybe he thought maybe he could confuse him if he said the last name first, and then the Bond, James Bond. Wait a minute, well, who is this person? This Maverick. Yeah.
To your point, he was also very sloppy in his personal behavior, hitting on anything with a pulse.
I'm surprised that guy had mad STDs. Just saying. He was
spreading
them around.
Yeah, hopefully he was using protection, but that's a great point.
Now, his protection for him would be his sweet little 9mm. That's all he needs.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're bringing up this, most famous of fictional spies because we want to contrast it with actual sleeper agents. These folks put so much effort into appearing really boring, super if beige was a person, they want to be beige.
All right, for sure. It's the whole ability to blend in. And really quickly, lest some James Bond heads in the crowd yell at me, James didn't use a 9mm. He used a Walther PP, that really cool little compact gun that he was always posing with, that he was using.
Yeah, it's out
James
of all his
Bond.
gadgets, he loved that little gun.
He really did.
Yeah, these sleeper agents, they infiltrate communities and workplaces. They go about a day-to-day list of routines and activities just the same way anybody else would. And because here's the thing, they're usually not doing any spy stuff for years or decades.
Yeah, that's right. They are playing the long game very slowly, as we mentioned in our recent spy episode, or spies getting caught episode. They move their way through the ranks of society, whether it be socially or, flitting around between different government or industrial circles and just trying to, win friends and influence people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then years or decades down the road, once they've established all these relationships and associations and connections, they might get a signal. And should the need arise, they can be activated by their handler.
Yeah, and this isn't Manchurian Candidate type activation, though who knows, maybe that is a thing. But this is literally some sort of covert message that is transmitted to this individual that causes them to leap into the end game portion of their plan, whether it be acquiring some sort of device, photographs, compromat, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be as simple as actively surveilling a target, or like you said, getting maybe the new plans for a jet or some other neato gadget.
Piece
or
of nuclear technology, perhaps.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great example. Or internal records from a government agency. At the more extreme end of the spectrum, they might be assigned to terminate an individual or to even commit acts of terrorism.
Yeah, terrorism. They wouldn't call it that, though, would they?
No. I don't know what they would call it.
I'm not sure either.
Any number of euphemisms, right? So
exactly.
Everything escalates at that point. Now, in the ideal situation for these folks, you want the agent to be able to maintain their cover after whatever task they're activated for, but sometimes you are past a point of no return. So the act you commit may burn your identity. And that means you either get caught, like we were saying at the top, or you have to be rescued, exfiltrated back to your home organization. It sounds so insane, but it's important to know this really can happen. And one knock-on consequence of this is it leads to an enormous amount of paranoia for the people in power.
Well, as it should. I mean, they know what they're up to, I mean, they can only imagine that the enemy, or at least the folks on the other side, are up to the same thing. And God forbid they're better at it than us.
Right. And this, I like that point because maybe it's a fear of inadequacy on some level.
There's a lot of insecurity in international intelligence.
Yeah, there's a lot of
for all that bravado and swagger, they're all just like worrying that the other guys have better toys than they do.
Yeah. There's a lot of insecurity in the world of security. Mm-hmm. And
that's true on many levels, actually.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. This leads us to some historical precedents. When the paranoia goes too far, you end up with mass hysteria outbreaks, like the infamous Red Scares. This is where the authorities—
was pretty scary.
Yeah, they go completely overboard. Anybody could be a spy. Just like during the Inquisition, anyone could be a witch.
Totally. Yeah. And once anyone can be your enemy, everyone is your enemy, right? You see, or at least you see your enemy in everything or in everyone. And it can really lead to some serious spiraling when you start mixing in propaganda and misinformation and just hatred and othering. It really can be a pretty nasty situation pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah, very quickly. The U.S. has had more than one Red Scare. A Red Scare is an era marked by a groundswell of public fear and anxiety, in this case, over the supposed rise of communist or socialist forces.
I'm picturing like an 80s, Schwarzenegger action movie or something around like, fighting the Russians or something, and somebody using the catchphrase, "You just got red scared."
I love it. Let's put that on the books, actually. Let's make that a thing.
Why not? And to your point, Ben, that's right. There were multiple red scares of varying, I guess they were different shades of red. And as Britannica notes, the first one of these red scares of varying shades, I guess, first occurred from 1917 to 1920. And this was amid an increase in the organizing of labor forces, labor unions, immigration, urbanization, and industrialization. The second period, Britannica notes, also called McCarthyism. We know about that one. That one was real red scary. After U.S. Senator Joseph McCarthy took place from roughly 1947 to 1954. And that's the classic example of where we're seeing our enemies, even among our friends.
Oh, yeah, this is bonkers. So in each of these cases they just mentioned, Noel, we see a clear pattern of overreach. During the first Red Scare, the Attorney General at the time, a guy named A. Mitchell Palmer, led a brutal series of raids that were probably unconstitutional against individuals who were usually going to be foreign-born immigrants, and for one reason or another, they were suspected of being anarchist or communist or radical leftist.
Sorry, dude. The head shake you just clocked. I mean, we're kind of living through another one of these eras right now. Just saying. Just, different flavor, I guess, of enemy. But yet we are seeing some serious overreach from this administration of targeting individuals for just something as simple as maybe having a different opinion. Someone who's outspoken against the administration, and then using some of these dog whistle kind of tactics of illegal immigrants who are violent criminals to just get rid of someone that you don't like.
Right. And it will eventually, at least historical precedent shows us, that kind of overreach will eventually start touching U.S. citizens as well.
Touching you. Touching people
with no sweet Caroline about it.
No, definitely not. And not to be alarmist or anything. I'm certainly not trying not to lose sleep over this kind of stuff, but it's really hard to not see the parallels when you look at these kinds of stories.
To not see the parallels.
Ooh, yeah. I did not see that coming, Elon Musk, you jokester.
So it is likely in the Red Scares that some of these folks were genuine assets, or they genuinely did want to commit crimes, right? They were a danger to national security. But even if that's likely, it is certain that many more of the individuals targeted were just random innocent folks. They happened to be from the wrong country, right? They went to the wrong meetings, or they knew the wrong people, even if it was just like their neighbor.
Right. During the second Red Scare, which was just after the Second World War, at the beginning of the Cold War, America was terrified that the Soviet Union might turn the entire world communist. That was kind of I hope I'm using this term correct, the fait accompli kind of the whole situation. It was the linchpin, communism was the ultimate fear. And it was used in a way to maybe accomplish some other things and to get rid of some inconvenient individuals by classifying them potentially as communists. That's what McCarthy was all about, with his blacklisting Hollywood writers and trying to get rid of people who might speak ill of him and his party.
Yeah, it was very much a thing where, just like the days of the Inquisition, that's why we call it a witch hunt, people had already taken it as a given that the U.S., the halls of power were riddled with Reds. And Joseph McCarthy, who was, whether or not he genuinely believed his claims, he was definitely an opportunist, leveraging that public fear and anxiety. So our buddy Heavy Joe starts claiming that there are communist sleeper agents everywhere in the government. He went nuts. He said, I have a list of known Soviet assets in the Department of State, and we have to investigate the CIA and a baker's dozen of other agencies. This got him crazy headlines. He got a lot of attention for it, and that probably pushed him to make increasingly extravagant claims. Like if you heard him tell it, it sounds like every third or fourth government employee is just a deep cover spy waiting for the signal to blow up the White House or something.
Yeah, and we got to root them out, Ben. We got to root them out and expose them for their treasonous actions. And we know, looking back on all of this, that this was massive overreach. That sure, there might have been some bad actors embedded. There might have been a few communists trying to spoil the bunch or ruin the America Party. But it wasn't like he described, and it was used in such a way, as weaponized, dare we say, in such a way where a lot of innocent people had their lives ruined.
Yeah, because you can't really recover from these kinds of accusations, even if they're disproven, right? It's still a blemish on your career. So tons of innocent people, like you said, Noel, they lost their jobs. There were very few actual convictions. And peek behind the curtain. Yeah, right? Who saw that coming? For a long time, we don't want to spoil it too much, but we've been speculating with some of our colleagues on doing an episode entirely focused on the House Un-American Activities Committee, or HUAC.
You know what we should do? We should get the Huactua girl to come talk to us about I'm sorry. I had to do it.
Do you think we can
Only
get
God
her?
can judge me. I don't know if we can. I think she might be available. I think you know what, though? I actually heard that she got cast as herself in a movie.
Well, that's great, man.
Yeah. And it was a big Hollywood job, too. So, I hope she's okay. That whole meme coin thing really threw her career into a tizzy. She was doing so well, just coasting on that Hawktua goodwill, and then had to get into crypto. Never get into crypto, at least publicly.
I feel like she was misled.
No question, but she allowed herself to be the face of this thing that was a genuine,
pump and dump.
What do they call it? A rug pull. Yes, pump and dump scam, and then just sort of vanished. So it just, I don't know. It just wasn't great. But anyway, we will welcome you with open arms, Huactua girl. Come talk to us about the House Un-American Activities Committee, and maybe another one of our colleagues will come too.
Yeah. And today, with the benefit of retrospect, we can look back and take the Red Scares for the valuable lesson that they are. They're moral panics. They're cases of mass hysteria. This shows us the danger of sliding into paranoia. And when I got to stop quoting Incubus. When you let fear take the wheel and steer, it can lead quickly to the erosion of the rule of law.
You know what I say, Ben? I say let Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah?
That's what I say.
The world's best Uber driver.
He really is. He's so kind. Good guy. Ben, I got a question, though. What a moral panic is not a term of abuse, but it is a term used maybe after the fact or in retrospect. You wouldn't call something when you're in it or you're participating in it a moral panic, would you? Because that implies that you're overreacting, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah. It's often so people in, say, the 90s with the satanic panic stuff, they wouldn't even call satanic panic a moral panic.
We're not panicking. We know exactly what we're doing. We're doing the right thing. We're getting rid of these demonic, satanic devil worshippers, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like how no group wants to be called a cult.
That's right.
Other than that band, The Cult.
Do you think that history will show or will refer to some of what we're living through in this era politically as a moral panic?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just want, again, not here to criticize anybody's political beliefs, whatever, do you. But I think there are some certain historical aspects of what's going on right now that are not going to be looked on favorably. Let's just
100%. And also, regardless of which administration is in power, factions of politicians will always engage in moral panics because they're great for re-election.
Well, yeah. It's a way of working people up into a froth, and getting them to kind of align behind a common enemy. And what better enemy than an amorphous concept that can exist anywhere, right?
Yeah. We love those in the U.S. As a matter of fact, the only one we had that wasn't super popular was the war on poverty. that one got sidelined.
Yeah,
but war on drugs, war on terror, all the other ones, war on the Reds.
They give you power to do other stuff and accomplish other like kind of off the books aims. And the idea of a war on anything just means that we're always at war.
Yes. Yeah. Very Orwellian. And so the Red Scare teaches us, or the Red Scares teach us these lessons. But unfortunately, then as now, these are lessons the U.S. seems to continually forget. And that is something that we all need to think about in the coming years.
Do you think they're forgetting it, or do you think they just think they're smarter than the people of the past?
Probably at the top, the latter. But for the public, I think we all forget how easily people can be pushed.
That's a good point.
That's
a good point. And it's easy to forget the historical precedents, especially when you have someone speaking with such authority and such confidence who you maybe personally have some skin in the game with. And you've tied part of your personality to this person being correct or this person representing the moral authority.
You know what we should do? Noel, what do you think? Let's play just a brief clip of Joe McCarthy so we can get the vibe.
Absolutely.
One communist on the faculty of one university is one communist too many. One communist among the American advisors at Yalta was one communist too many. And even if there were only one communist in the State Department, even if there were only one communist in the State Department, that would still be one communist too many.
I'd be behind this guy. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
As you said, Noel, authoritative, confident. There's a ticking time bomb, high stakes.
Yeah, and I think it's just an interesting point, the idea of a moral panic only being seen as such in retrospect, mass hysteria, etc. But paranoia and prejudice aside, there are absolutely genuine conspiracies and sleeper agents at play. No question about it. And I think we've already alluded to that throughout.
Yeah. We'll pause for a word from our sponsors, and then we're diving into Operation Ghost Stories. Here's where it gets crazy. All right, it's the year 2000. Everything is different. You can just go and hang out at the airport. You know what I mean?
Oh man, that was so cool. You could smoke in the airplane. No, I think we're cool with that. Isn't it weird though that they're using airplanes that still have little flippy ashtrays like on the seats? I'm only just now starting to see those go away. Have you noticed that, Ben? They are starting to get finally. Yeah, but not as recently as a few years ago. That was definitely still a thing.
I always feel a little bit. I wouldn't say diseased, but I feel I always clock it when I see an airplane that's old enough to still have those ashtrays.
Yep.
And I just keep thinking,
what else?
I hope they have a maintenance program.
Yeah, exactly. No, but that's a guy. I hadn't thought about it in a while, but I am realizing now that I'm not seeing those as much anymore. So I think they finally passed a point where they have, okay, guys, we got to get rid of the ashtrays. But it was a golden time.
It was a halcyon era. Around this time, and the story's a bit murky. We'll see why. FBI agents learned that there are real sleeper spies from Russia in the United States. They're posing as Americans, and they are, this is not Red Scare level stuff. They're not people who just happen to be from Moldova or Belarus or something. They are Russian intelligence officers. They have high-level training, and they have ghosted into the general population. As the FBI supervisor, Alan Kohler, put it, they're posing as Americans to get access like Americans. They had children, friends, colleagues, even their next-door neighbors were just like, what? Michael? No, he's the most boring guy I've met.
What a sweetheart. And, Ben, I just wanted to take this moment to point out what a badass name Operation Ghost Story is, because it works on so many levels. Like it evokes fear and kind of the spooky vibes, but also it's about a backstory. It's about ghosting your way into this country and then having a convincing and plausible story that you are telling everybody that is forward facing and that is believable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the FBI's operation, this was their name. Operation Ghost Stories was the FBI investigation to find these folks. And I agree I love what you're pointing out about the levels of the name. Because as we know, the feds don't always knock out a home run when it comes to naming things, but they did pretty well.
It's a good one. Yeah, it would have, honestly, it would have been even cooler if it was the Russian name for the operation. But I'll take it however it's being given.
It would have been cooler if it was the Russian name. Yeah, that would have had some bravado. All right, so they found that of these people, there are 10 that they identify in the U.S., and a lot of them are using stolen identities of other Americans with forged documents. They enroll at U.S. universities. They join, trade groups like Young Americans for blah blah blah, etc. And they were all being ordered by. So Russia has two intelligence agencies that can conflict at times, sort of like how the FBI and the CIA don't always get along. These folks are directly working for SVR, which is a Russian intelligence agency. They are tasked with getting information on, as you pointed out, nuclear weaponry. They want to figure out what the U.S. what stance it has toward Iran, who's going to be the next leader of the CIA, what's really happening in Congress. You know what I mean? Like, what teenagers is Matt Gaetz scoring that weekend? He wasn't in play at this point.
These are important questions, Ben. And then the answer is all of them.
Right. And this is the weirdest thing to me, Noel. The FBI, we still don't know how they came across this. It's not public knowledge yet. But the FBI did not move immediately. Instead, starting somewhere around 2000, they investigated and built out the network until like 2010. So for a decade before arresting anybody, they investigated this. And when they made their move on June 27th, they got 10 people in the U.S., and then they got another, let's call them honorable mentions.
Can we just say that the idea of child sleeper agents is particularly interesting and troubling, and I don't think we do that. Do we do that? I don't think we have children spies in the United States.
Yeah, no, not to my knowledge in recent history. I think one thing we do have to point out is I'm sure a kid could be, this is ethically fraught, but I'm sure a kid could be used as an informant.
A listening device. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And I know, well, from what we understand with deep cover sleeper agents, from regardless of where they're from, if they have children, they're usually not letting the children in on the game. The kids are innocent bystanders.
Okay. All right. I'd have a hard time believing that that's true every time. But anyway, I'm see
sure.
What you're saying.
I mean, in the show The Americans, this is a light spoiler. The spies in question do have children. And a large part of the family drama piece of this is
children finding out, and they have to escape. I believe I've watched the first episode, or I watched. No, I'm thinking of a different thing. I'm in a movie or something where all of a sudden it's like we've been made. We have to fly the coop, and only now do the children know something weird has been going on. Right,
like the Black Widow movie.
That was it. Thank you, Ben. That was what it was. That was exactly what it was. Yes.
I mean, can you imagine all right, it's, as any parent knows, it's already tremendously stressful to shepherd your kid through adolescence and those awkward teen years. So what if on top of all the hormones and the challenges a young kid faces growing up, on top of all that, at some point, you're probably going to have to tell them that you're a spy,
totally.
Right?
Yeah, and I think I was maybe barking up the wrong tree with my initial line of questioning, because perhaps the Russians also do not do child spies. So I was not trying to be like we have some sort of moral high ground here. But if it's being done anywhere, it's likely being done here as well, and we just don't know about it. So
yeah, no, that's a good point, and I think it's important that you make it. But also, I don't want to sound too Cold War hawkish, but I do think Well, we know for a fact
Children have been deployed. Right?
Russia has a different set of rules. They have a very different philosophy about nutrition.
I think it's entirely possible, and dare we say plausible, that there have been knowing uses of children for spying purposes.
As unclean as it is. The U.S., during this multi-year investigation, they started internally referring to the suspected sleeper agents as the illegals program. Now, all in all, in 2010, they made 11 arrests. 10 were in the U.S., and 1 was all the way out in Cyprus. That guy's really interesting. The 11th dude, Christopher Metzos, he was sort of their money guy. He flew to the U.S. with literal bags of money. When he got apprehended in Cyprus, he made bail, he skipped bail, he hit the wind. He totally disappeared, which is kind of hard to do in this day and age.
For sure. And Ben, can I just say, I just Googled child spies, and there are a lot of agencies or organizations that are out there trying to prevent the use of child spies.
Oh, wow. So it's a known issue. Huh?
Why using children as spies is such a bad idea. High court rules against Just for Kids law in challenge to use of children as spies. The judge ruled, despite the self-evident dangers to children, the current guidance is not unlawful. This isn't America, y'all.
This reminds me of a child soldier.
That's what I'm saying. That's not that different. They're absolutely in danger in a similar way, even if they're not like on the front lines, like, killing people. They are, playing a dangerous game.
It's a good way to move communications too, right? To use a kid as a courier.
Always has been.
Yeah.
I mean, in like old school like conflicts.
Mm-hmm. And we know Afghanistan in particular has an issue with this. These folks, some of them do have kids, but the folks in the illegals program that are the target of Operation Ghost Stories, they're all adults. We'll give you their names, and just to be clear, a lot of these names are fake. The suspects are Juan Lazaro, real name Mikhail Antolyevich Vazenkov. I butchered that one. Vicky Pelez, Donald Heathfield, real name Andrei Bezrukov, Tracy Lee Ann Foley, very American-sounding name. Her real name's Yelena Vavilova.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love Russian names.
Me too.
This child spy thing has got me going down a rabbit hole, Ben. I'm actually realizing that a lot of this is in the UK, and the language of the laws in the UK are conducive to allowing child spies, and that's what was shot down by the high courts. But if they're doing it in the UK, they're doing it here. Mm-hmm. You know it.
Well, it's like assassination. If a tactic works, then everybody who can deploy that tactic is going to give it a go.
You were listing off some names, Ben, and I was distracted down the child spy rabbit hole, but I believe you left off with Yelena Vavilova, a.k.a. Leanne Foley, which is, you're right, Ben. It sounds like my Aunt Leanne from Durham, Mm-hmm. We got Richard Murphy, also very just quintessentially American name, a.k.a. Vladimir Guriev, Cynthia Murphy, his wife, a.k.a. Lydia Guriev, and we've got Michael Zatoli, a.k.a. Mikhail Kutzik.
Mm-hmm. And then Patricia Mills, real name Natalia Pereverzeva. That's close enough.
Done. Well done. It's easy to want to insert another ER kind of combo in there.
Pereverzera.
Yeah, that's fun to say.
And then there's Mikhail Semenko, and most famously, Anna Chapman. We mentioned that the 11th man out there in Cyprus who escaped, around the same time, there was a Russian national who was working for Microsoft in the U.S. He was apprehended, and he was deported on July 13th, 2010, so a little bit before the big arrest. We got to be honest with you folks, even just based on publicly available knowledge, this does not seem to be a Red Scare. It does not seem to be a witch hunt. Investigators found tons of concrete evidence that indicated motive, tactics, and intent. And they found, as we mentioned, that some of the agents functioning as couples even had children. Maybe not because they always wanted to start a family,
It's a cover unto itself.
Yes.
It's the ultimate cover because you like I think maybe the fact that we spent so much time talking about the idea of child spies and how abhorrent that would be is the whole point. Because no one would suspect, a lovely, loving couple with their small children, because who would do that to children?
Who would?
Mm-hmm.
We would.
You sure would.
We mean America, not Noel and Dylan and myself. Or I don't know, Dylan, where are you at with child spies?
You get in situations, Ben. I'm going to quote you back at you.
You do get in situations. Dylan is not going on record. He's not taking the bait. Well played, Mr. Fagan. So, okay, man, this is true, right? Even we had to take pains to point out the dangers of paranoia because it can go wrong so quickly. But it looks like if you go to the DOJ and the criminal complaints, you'll see that they nail down not just intent and targets, but they nail down the way folks communicated with each other, which I got to tell you is just, it's so cool, man, just objectively, like dead drops. Haven't you ever wanted to be, to like sit on opposite sides of a park bench and have code words?
I do it sometimes just for funsies, just by myself, and just sit there waiting for, my contact who never arrives. And then I go home and cry into my pillow.
And what language do you cry in?
I just say, "Niet!" Niet! That's Russian for no.
Yes. So they found that these Russian agents would communicate with their handlers or with the SVR proper using messages hidden in digital photographs or things written in actual disappearing ink.
Yeah, which is a thing. We talked about the spy museum that we all went to and hung out at in D.C. Was that where we went, Ben?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Wait. There was another one, though. Wait, it was D.C. We haven't been to D.C. together, have we?
No, but I think we went to that same museum just at different times.
I think it was at different times, but then there was the Mafia Museum. That was another one. But gosh, I swear we've been together, but it doesn't matter. There is an incredible spy museum where you can see a lot of the kind of tradecraft stuff that we're talking about here, like how invisible ink is made and deployed and listening devices and things like that. So if you're into this stuff and you want to see some IRL, highly recommend checking that out.
Mm-hmm. And these guys are using real old school stuff. We talked about dead drops. They're also doing the thing. Oh, man. This is one of those pranks that we just have to do one day. They're doing the thing where you get two identical bags or like a valise or a suitcase, and then you switch them when you meet.
Okay.
And I love that stuff. We also learned that they were gathering information to report back to Moscow about what the U.S. planned to do in Central America, what they were internally thinking about Russian foreign policy, if there were any internal problems with the U.S. military that can be leveraged, and then how the U.S. handles terrorists on the internet. Like what kind of tools and toys do they apply to this? Mm-hmm. And it just gets even weirder. I don't know. Should we take an ad break?
Oh, we must. We gotta meet our dead drop.
We've returned. All right. The next thing is, as we mentioned previously, proving that these assets are functioning under their own free will and that they know what they're doing, right? Or they're aware of their position, because it's not impossible that someone could be accidentally working for a spy group and they don't know it. You know what I mean? They just know some guy named Jeremy has blackmail on them.
You know Jeremy?
Yeah, you know Jeremy?
What's he got on you?
He's got nothing on me, man. We're just old friends.
All right, fair. That's cool. Jeremy's a bit of a rapscallion. He's a bit incorrigible.
Yeah, he's a sort of a maverick character.
Mm-hmm.
So the FBI has to prove their case in public too. Because, we know that the FBI in the past has run into serious controversies and accusations about so-called witch hunts. So about a year after these arrests in 2011, the FBI says, okay, everybody, here's a ton of evidence that these are actual spies. They've got documents, photos, videos backing up these allegations.
Right.
And then the FBI also said, they've always said this, that these agents didn't get their job done. They did not get classified info. They did not attain their goals, whatever those goals may be.
This is the line being fed to the public, or
yes,
okay, yeah. So don't worry about it. Everything's cool. We might have missed this for like a really, really long time, but now we're on the case and nothing bad happened.
Exactly. And so they said, yes, these guys did get some info. They did talk back to Russia, but mainly what they were doing is is something we call spotting and assessing. This is where spying turns into like a multi-level marketing scheme.
Okay, explain. I don't think I understand.
So spotting and assessing, this is where you identify a colleague, like a coworker or someone you know through social circles, et cetera.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, could these people be vulnerable targets for maybe a honeypot operation, extortion, threats?
Yes. Blackmail, whether it be extorting, money or influence or whatever it might be. I guess it wouldn't be money, though, exclusively. It would always be some greater, puppet string kind of maneuver from Moscow, right?
Yeah, like access, information, right? Yes. And then the real golden goose is determining whether you can co-opt someone to knowingly become a spy as well. That's right. That's the multi-level marketing part.
Then you got them. You've made a new asset. Yeah, 100%. I understand what you mean now.
It's weird. I hate how accurate the MLM comparison is, but Noel, this is where the FBI in their statement references a precedent we talked about in a previous episode, the Cambridge Five.
Ah, yes, the Cambridge Five. Perhaps the most famous example of this tactic can be found in the Cambridge Five. This took place in Great Britain. Soviet intelligence talent spotters, like you were referring to, Ben. This is from the FBI themselves, by the way, verbatim, with, styling on it a little bit. These talent spotters were able to recruit Cambridge University students in the 1930s, including future spy Kim Philby, who would later rise to power in the British government and become Soviet operatives during World War II. And into the 1950s. So this group of Cambridge students collectively would go on to become Soviet assets.
And they functioned, to your point, for so long successfully. And I remember we were talking about this earlier, and you started calling it the Cambridge plus or minus 5.
Well, that's because, I think there were more. 5 was just referring to the concept of it, but there were some that are undocumented, or rather, have not been publicly named.
Yeah, what do we say? They started as the Cambridge 4. They found
sounds like a ska band, doesn't it? It really I just picture them wearing rude boy shoes and skanking, to saxophone music.
I owe my ska years a re-listen.
Your ska years? Ben Bolin, the ska years?
Yeah.
Did you have checkerboard pants? You don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that. I want to see you skank sometimes, though, when we're out in public. If anybody isn't old like us and doesn't know what that is, it's a dance move associated with ska music where you kind of scissor your arms and legs sort of back and forth in different directions, and with kind of a cool swagger to it, right?
Sure.
It's I always thought it was cool, but now looking back, it kind of looks ridiculous.
Did you have a ska phase?
Not really. I was in a punk band for a while, and I remember going to a thrift store with my older than me punk friends and getting my first pair of thrifted punk type outfit, and it was the pants were old man golf pants kind of, but they were absolutely had a tartan kind of pattern on them. And then I had some Doc Martens, and I think I wore a dog collar for a hot minute there, Ben. Not gonna lie. It was time.
Nice. And it's a good memory to have, right?
I think there's photos floating around out there somewhere. Maybe I'll try to find a few and show you guys.
And that will take careful planning. The feds were also all about careful planning. They didn't.
That was a stretch, Ben, but I love it.
That was a stretch.
I appreciate it.
We got to get there.
I appreciate the segue. Yes,
they
sir.
They were intensely planning. It seems counterintuitive
No,
to say,
for sure.
oh, okay, we know these folks, right? We know their intent. We know that they are actively doing stuff, or they're
Right.
sleeper agents and they may be activated at some point. So why did they hold off on arresting them?
Oh, but you just answered your own question,
Yeah.
man. I think it's obvious. Like, we bide our time. We watch and see what they know and what they find out and who they have access to. And in doing that, we could learn a lot about maybe our flaws and maybe find some folks on our side who are, need to be rooted out. Because again, the whole Red Scare McCarthyism thing, I think that's what most people think about when they think about this era. But to your point, Ben, I mean, the folks that aren't just out gabbing to the public and making a big witch hunt like McCarthy, they were having to deal with actual facts, sleeper agents and folks that were, intending to do harm or to compromise the integrity of, the sovereignty of the United States.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know how long the FBI investigation would have lasted, like how long they would stretch it out, searching for more agents, more evidence.
That's right.
Because they had to move quickly. They intercepted, we believe they intercepted a phone call on June 26th from Anna Chapman to her father, veteran KGB agent working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And as soon as she confided to her dad that she was concerned her cover might get blown. And this led the Obama administration to move their timeline up quickly. So the next day, they arrested everybody. There were a couple other members of the group who were going to travel outside of the U.S., and they didn't want them to slip through their clutches.
Mm-hmm. And this also reminds me of a plot line in another quite excellent, in my opinion, at least the first season, spy show. It's a Taylor Sheridan series called Lioness with Zoe Saldana, and it really shows the military side of this kind of stuff and these kinds of operations. And I'm sure there's some hyperbole in there and it's overblown, but I very much enjoyed it and found it to be an interesting kind of peek behind the curtain about the various levels of who knows what when and who authorizes what operation and collateral damage and all of that stuff. So do recommend Lioness.
Feels like a very tense job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Nicole Kidman is in it and was one of the high-level folks in the U.S. government. And I think she's really, really great in the show. She's a handler, like a high-level handler of some of these basically folks on our side who are turning people close to political targets, whether it be girlfriends or wives, specifically women, in this case, that's the Lioness program, into assets in order to gain access to their spouses or fathers or what have you. And it's very interesting.
Yeah. I can't wait to check it out. We know that this raid or these arrests, when they happen suddenly and the feds come down hard. There are raids all on the same day in Boston, Yonkers, New Jersey, and Northern Virginia. And there was no evidence that these suspected agents all knew of each other. The only ones who definitely knew of each other were folks who were spouses.
Exactly.
Although that'd be funny if they were both Russian spies and they didn't know the other one was.
Holy crap! That's the plot of Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
They're assassins, right?
Yeah, and they don't. Yeah, and they don't know, and they're both sleeper agents essentially who are turned against each other. And the Donald Glover Mr. and Mrs. Smith TV series, excellent, really, really good. A lot of people slept on that. Sorry. So as The Guardian would later go on to describe it as the FBI's biggest known breach of Russian intelligence communications. The feds, this is The Guardian speaking, read their emails, decrypted their intel, read the embedded coded text on images posted on the net. I love that they're calling it the net. Bugged their mobile phones, videotaped the passing of bags of cash and messages in invisible ink from one agent to another and hacked into their bogus expense claims. Ben, this is a very 2000 sentence. I just love it. The net.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's like that movie Hackers. Reroute the encryptions.
Yeah, 2010. This was written, this opinion piece on Russian spying. Russian spies bungle was epic by David Hurst from the Guardian.
Yeah, I think we got to shout this one out because I, in particular, love some classic British snark as long as it's not directed at us.
God forbid. I couldn't handle it. I would crumble.
I can't watch Peep Show without pacing. Just because of the snark.
For some reason, that one does it for me. That one is a comfort show for me. But there are certain British shows that are just so uncomfortable and awkward that it just makes you kind of tense up and like, I need to. I cover my eyes at cringe like I would a horror movie sometimes.
Exactly.
I don't know if you felt that impulse. Yeah.
And I've seen horrible, horrific things in real life and dealt with those as they came. But for some reason, watching David Mitchell yet again sabotage a romantic relationship is just horrific to me. It's horrid.
I'm with you. I get where you're coming from, Ben.
Anyway, British snark.
No, Britain. Well, yeah. In their review of the spy group's methods, they refer to the tactics as being amateurish. Refer to it once again as in the title as bungling on a massive scale. When I say bring back the word bungling. Nobody says bungling anymore. I like it. It has a certain umami to it.
Let's make it a noun.
I think
that's quite a bungle.
What a bungle. Yeah. One of my favorite bands is Mr. Bungle. So I'm with you. They go on to have a spy ring uncovered before they could actually do any serious spying is doubly embarrassing.
Ooh, the snark. That's cold. That's cold. So
it's both cold and it burns.
Yes.
Somehow.
Yeah. Icy hot. This is again, as we'll see, it is in step with the FBI's official line, right? We caught them before something terrible would have happened. So what happens to these folks now? The one guy in Cyprus, he escapes. The other 10 are in U.S. custody. They're busted. And Reuters reports on July 7th, 2010, just a few days after the arrest, Russia and the U.S. hatch a prisoner swap deal, the biggest of its kind since 1986. We're trading our people back and forth.
So the 10 individuals that were arrested as part of the illegals program, that aged well, would be deported to Russia in exchange for individuals who Russia convicted of espionage on behalf of the U.S. and the U.K. And that, like you said, Ben, this is something that is often done, these prisoner exchanges. It is a bargaining chip type situation in the world of tradecraft. And it works, but it is also interesting because it's sort of like a no harm, no foul kind of thing almost, but it's weird. I don't know how I'm not describing it right, but yeah.
You're right. It's super weird, and it can make it feel as though all the work to bust these folks has come to nothing.
For naught, exactly. That's what I was butting up against. Thanks, man.
Yeah. It can feel that way, but we have to remember, by the time these 10 spies get back to Russia, they've been thoroughly interrogated. They're squeezed dry like a lemon, If the U.S. thought there was more to be gained from them, the deal would not have occurred. And another little pro tip, folks, especially during the War on Terror, it's interesting to go back and read through stories of prison escapes in Pakistan and parts of the stands, because not every time, but more often than you might think, those prison escapes were manufactured so that we didn't have to tell the American public that we were letting some bad guys go as part of a larger deal.
You mean a lie?
A deception? A prevarication?
Who would do that? No, it's true. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be jaded about it. It's just kind of like, this is why we do this show, y'all. I think it's really hard to believe at face value what any government says, ever. Whatever the administration, whatever the political climate, it's just, it's a game that's built on a mountain of bull.
Yeah. And that is a broad brush that we are more than comfortable painting with because it has never not been true.
A broad brush of bull.
Right. So there are happy endings for some of these spies. Anna Chapman in particular becomes a sort of celebrity. She heads a youth council. She becomes a model at fashion shows. She even runs her own TV series. Things worked out well for Chapman.
Did they go to like the premiere of The Americans?
That'd be amazing, but I don't think they're traveling back to the States.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
That
would have been cool though.
Yeah. We'll make a special dispensation for an appearance. You know?
So it's a close call, and the FBI considers it a success story. They busted the conspiracy. There are some great in-depth reports about this, fantastic documentary. In this case, it seems that the good guys won, but that's not quite the end, because the discovery of a group like this, even if they were a bungle, it leads us to some disturbing implications. I mean, no, we only caught these folks because they screwed up.
That's right. And again, we just did an episode about this kind of rash of spies getting caught and spies screwing up. Are spies getting worse? What's going on? To your point, Ben, the implications there can be pretty disturbing. This means there's a non-zero chance, as you put it, Ben, of a more competent network out there, potentially. Yeah. The one that didn't get caught.
Yeah.
And that's part of why the FBI isn't exactly being entirely forthright about how they went about identifying this ring, which totally makes sense.
Yeah, because you don't want if there is another gang out there, you don't want them to know how you catch your rabbits.
You'd call this a cell, right? More or less?
You call it a cell. Yeah, they definitely were grouped under the same umbrella in Moscow, but they did not they didn't have group meetings with all 10.
But isn't that the point? Like a cell,
yes.
they're siloed by nature. They don't know about each other, but they're kind of doing the same thing, and it's sort of a numbers game, right?
Yeah. They're decentralized, which is a really smart thing to do. And second, and this might disturb our international listeners, these tactics and these groups are not limited to the U.S. We know Russia has done this in the U.K. They're messing around in Australia. People are trying to get in where they fit in. They're likely occurring around the world right now, and some just haven't been caught because in a very real way, to our Russian friends, the Cold War never ended.
No, it didn't. And can I just say, Ben, that your name on our video chat today is Ben ! Which you would say just as Ben. And you're making me feel that way today. Very exclamatory and excited to be talking about this topic with you, as dark as it may be and the implications being what they are. And, as rough as things might feel out there for some of us, many of us in the United States, it's good to know that you're in a good mood and you have my back.
Well, who knew that a small piece of punctuation can make such a positive difference?
Goes a long way.
Yeah, you and I have had, candidly, pretty rough weeks.
Yep.
We're both very happy for Friday. And folks, we're so happy that you took the time to join us. We will be returning in the future with episodes on things like diplomatic immunity or shock doctrine. And then we'll have some paranormal mixed in there too. Mm-hmm. Our takeaway here, though, to your earlier question, is are spies getting worse? Is technology getting better? These conspiracies are real, but the same technology that makes it easier to track sleeper spies can also make it easier for them to hide and communicate. There's a new world order in the realm of tradecraft. So tell us, if you're a child spy, tell us what kind of sleeper agent you would be. Like, what would your cover job be?
Or sleepy agent,
sleepy agent.
Do you sleep with a stuffed animal? I do. I'm not going to lie. I love a stuffed animal. My house is full of them. I had a house cleaner come over once and ask me if I had lots of small children. I don't. They're mine.
Good. Draw the line in the sand there, Noel, and let them know what's what. In the meantime, we want you to let us know what's what. We'd love your input on this. We'd love to hear your stories and build out your sleeper agent or sleepy agent persona. Tell us all about it online, via email, or on the phone.
That's right. You can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on all the social media platforms of note, I suppose. That is Conspiracy Stuff on X, FKA Twitter, on YouTube, where we have video content galore for your perusing enjoyment, and on Facebook, where we have our Facebook group, Here's Where It Gets Crazy. Start your own sleeper cell with your fellow Here's Where It Gets Crazies. On Instagram and TikTok, however, we're Conspiracy Stuff Show.
And should you engage with telephonic devices, why not give us a call? We are 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call, you will hear a hopefully familiar voice, and then you'll hear a beep like so. Beep. That means you're off to the races. 3 minutes. Those minutes are yours. Go nuts. Get weird with it. You can give us your real name or a cool nickname. Most importantly, just let us know if we can use your name and or message on the air. If you prefer to communicate via email, we have some good news for you. We're available 24 hours a night, 7 evenings a week at our good old-fashioned email address. We are
conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.